Good morning, everyone. It's Michelle Hill and Dr. Dawn Hamby. We are back.
Yes, yes.
Oh, goodness gracious. The joy, I guess you could call it the love-hate relationship with technology, right?
Amen.
It's helping us be able to bring this to our audience today, but at the same time, when you have issues and it doesn't work, you kind of get in a mess. So thank you all for your patience. Hey, y'all, we're going to literally jump right in because we know everyone has busy days. Before we determined to disconnect, Dr. Dawn, I had given them just a brief description of you again and your business. And I had shared with them that just as a recap, last week we covered number 1 and 2 of your top 5 tips for working from home. And today we're going to dive into the last 3. And I had just shared with them as a recap from last week that number 1 was to be prepared. And you were prepared for this, but we also have to remember to be flexible and to understand that things happen and to have that plan B. And then number 2 was to get completely dressed. Are there anything else you want to say about those 2 before we dive into those final 3?
I think because of what happened this morning, that's a great example, Michelle, of why it's so important. Because in preparation for the day, that's when I realized we were one of 1,000 Xfinity customers that were without Wi-Fi today. And no matter what we did, we couldn't use it. So I'm broadcasting to you today through my cell phone. And we didn't even know, you and I, that we had audio problems until we were live. But if I was not completely dressed, and if I didn't know this ahead of time, I wouldn't have even had the option of using my cell phone. So I think it's a great example of why those first 2 steps lead us right into number 3.
Because
gotta be prepared.
Had you shown up in your pajamas to connect and then realized there was no Wi-Fi, this would have been a completely different show.
It would have been completely different. Probably very entertaining, but I mean, exactly.
But not quite the content that we really want to share, right?
Exactly.
Well, again, guys, number 1 is to be prepared to the extent that you can be prepared. And y'all, not to give away too much, but next week, we're going to take that step a little bit further with specific things to be doing, get ready, on Sunday.
Yes.
So the little teaser there, we'll dig into that. And then number 2, go ahead and get completely dressed just because you never know. So let's dive into those final 3.
Yes.
Find number 3 here that I can pop up on the screen, and that is to focus on those top to-dos.
The top 5 to-dos. I've actually created something called the Focus 5 to-do list. I'm a to-do list person. I'm a visual person. And I really felt like I needed time to focus at the beginning of the day on what my most important task would be. So I actually created my own to-do list that I've used in my office. I've given to my staff. It is something that you can order with Dr. Dawn Shop Talk if you're interested, but it's a customized to-do list that helps you focus. And we call it the Focus 5 because we want you to focus on just 5 to-dos in the morning and 5 to-dos in the afternoon. Make them very general, but make them specific to what your important goals are. So last week when we talked about how important it is to still have that time in that fuzzy robe and those fuzzy socks, I take my coffee and my to-do list and I make that out before I get completely dressed. And one of the reasons is because you want to know what your most important tasks are before you get busy with the rest of your day. You don't want an email to be the reason you're doing something immediately. We'll get to that in just a minute. But focusing on those 5 tasks in the morning and no more than 5 really helps you be successful. All the research says, you guys, our brains can handle just so much. And I'm from the generation that thought that multitasking was the way to go 24/7. Actually, if you multitask too much, you can spread yourself way too thin and you're not as effective. So the Focus 5 to-do list helps you do that. Just focus on 5 of your most important tasks in the morning and then 5 in the afternoon. Also, leave some room on your to-do list, like we have, for follow-up. There should be a section for follow-up where, oh, that's right, I've got to return that email, right? So we have a section on our to-do list that just focuses on that. And then at the end of the day, I always put down what my top priority is for the next day before I leave work. You guys, that's really important because, again, you don't want to get to work and forget what you felt your most important task was from the day before. On Friday, I put down what is going to be my most important task on Monday. And one of those for me was to double check my material Sunday night to make sure the internet was working. And it was until 4 this morning. So some things are out of control. You just go on. And because I had other things already prepared, it was pretty seamless once we got the audio working. So
yeah,
but that's
well, and I like that it's that you talk about the top 5 to-dos because and you already mentioned it. There was a time, and there may still be a time on some level where there's this big ordeal about multitasking and the ability to do all these things at one time. And for those of us with those doer type personalities that do live by, a planner, and we have a to-do list and we like checking things off the list. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's okay to have that extensive ongoing list, but to keep ourselves grounded and organized and productive. I really like that you said, let's identify a top 5 for the morning. Let's our breaks. And we haven't talked a whole lot about that, but it's important to get those breaks in. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. And then and focus on the 5 for the afternoon. It doesn't mean that you can't do anything else, but just keep some type of organization so that those parts. And if you've spent time on Sunday prioritizing and figuring out where those focus areas are, you're going to feel much better about going into the day.
And I think it's important when you fill that out. Those are great points. That's right, Michelle, because as we mentioned earlier, multitasking is not always effective. But when I fill out my top 5, I always leave a little room to add something. Because in my top 5, I have a section on tasks and a section on emails and phone calls. So I try to leave one of those blank so that I can fill something in as it comes up, sometimes 2 blank, but there's going to be 5 by the time lunch comes around.
Right. Yeah.
In the afternoon. So yes, that is just so important. But yeah, that leads us actually to our next top 5, number 4, which is regarding email. In fact, there's a wonderful book called Never Check Email First Thing in the Morning, written by Julie Morgenstern. And one of the reasons for philosophies like that is, yes, many of us are driven by email. I'm in a business where I have to return my emails quite often. However, you don't want checking your email to be the very, very first thing you do, because then someone else's agenda becomes your agenda, and that may not be what a company wants in terms of focusing on that bottom line. Now, of course, your boss, their email should take priority, because if your boss needs you to do something right away, obviously you're going to do that. But oftentimes, if it's a real emergency and your boss needs something yesterday, they're going to call you or text you. They're not going to even probably worry about sending that out in an email. So in my experience and the experience of my staff, it's important not to let email drive everything. In fact, you know that some Fortune 500 companies have actually taken away the ping notification of that email. They've had their IT companies come in there and disable it from their computers.
Wow.
Why? Because that research has shown that if you have a constant ping, that disruption can really affect your productivity. So what we do in our office is we build in 3 to 4 regular email checks. So our first couple of minutes, our first 5 minutes is filling out that to-do list. We're not going to wait 30 minutes or an hour to check our email, don't get me wrong. But those first couple of minutes, you grab that cup of coffee You fill out that to-do list and you focus on what is our office's most important task, because that's going to affect your organization's bottom line the most. Then you check your email. So we check our email in the morning, but it's after maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes of being in the office together. We check it then. We check our email right before we go to lunch. We check our email right after lunch. And then we do one last email check around 3:30 in the afternoon, kind of late in the afternoon before we wrap up. So if you have regular email checks, another tip is, if you know that email is going to take a little bit longer, you can respond and say, oh, I got your email. Let me check on that. I'll follow up with you shortly. And then people know they're not waiting. They know that you've gotten their email and you're working on it. You just may not be able to get them an answer within that first 30 minutes to an hour, might be at the end of the day. And if it's not at the end of the day, you can always send a quick email, let them know it'll be the next day before they'll have an answer. And most of the time, people are really not expecting you to answer within nanoseconds. They just need the answer soon.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so glad you brought up the pinging, and that's amazing that some companies have actually decided to disable that. That's me. And in our age of wanting things instantly, this thing here. So I think it's and I'm guilty. I will go ahead and admit it. I think it's very important that we also disable this, that we put this on silent, do not disturb, airport mode, whatever it takes throughout the day, because we all have them right here beside our laptop, our computer. And so if we're going to be structured and we're going to focus on those 5 things and not allow distractions, I think it's real important to kind of silence these babies too, or put them out.
Absolutely.
Because it can be such a distraction. And I apologize, I don't have the exact statistic, but I don't recall, the number of distractions that we all get, throughout the day, and how many hours that adds up to. I'll have to look that up because I'm not recalling right now, but
yes.
Wow. Yeah, great.
Yes.
And we have created, so to speak, this society where we feel this obligation to respond immediately. Back to this, I think text and instant message has created that as well. But if we're going to work smart and keep in line with focusing and having that productivity, I like having the built-in regular email checks, and just keep it closed until then and focus on those other things. All right.
Absolutely.
Moving on to number 5, we talked about the importance of taking breaks, and this is a great suggestion you're going to talk about right here.
Yes, kind of along those same lines of our ability to concentrate and be productive. So all the research, you guys, shows this, right? The human brain can just take so much. Okay, it's true. And for you to be your most productive, you need to have concentrated work time. In the past, 60 minutes was thrown around, but current research shows that a human being can really concentrate for a good solid 60 to 90 minutes. However, you need to create what I call a 10-minute stretch for yourself. You got to build in those breaks. If you do, then you are just going to have more productivity. You're going to be able to think more clearly. You're going to be able to have more pep and energy to finish that task. And that break should be something different than sitting at your computer, if at all possible. Get up and walk, stretch, get an extra cup of coffee or a bottle of water, go visit with a colleague, things like that. That face-to-face interaction is going to be so great when we can be face-to-face, right? Those 10-minute stretches for every 60 to 90 minutes of concentrated work, you're going to see your productivity soar. You'll feel different at work. You will feel like you're accomplishing a lot. And then if you also have that trusty to-do list, and if you're visual like me and are checking off those items, those tasks one at a time, I'm even cheesy enough, Michelle, to have a red pen, because red is a very bright, vibrant color. So I like to check those tasks off in red. I've got colleagues that are much more comfortable with having those tasks on their cell phone. That's fine too. I use my cell phone in the notes section and reminder section all the time. Another thing I do to make sure I build in 10-minute stretches is, you guys, if you're going to be distracted, go ahead and let your alarm distract you once in a while. I will actually set my alarm for those breaks, or set my alarm 10 minutes before I'm supposed to get ready for my next meeting. Now, if you use your Outlook calendar, it's going to send you probably a 10 or 15-minute reminder, and that's going to be another ding. So if you disable the dings, you might want to use an alarm. I use a Fitbit, so if my alarm is on silent, it's going to vibrate right here, so it's not as distracting.
Right.
So things like that can help you concentrate for 60 to 90 minutes and then have that break, and you will get so much more done than every 10 to 15 minutes you're interrupted.
Yeah, I like that too. And especially in this space right now of working from home. And again, I'm raising my hand saying, you know, I'm the first offender here. And it
Yeah.
can become easy to stay planted at the desk and not, and like right now,
Yes.
I have my water. I started out with water, and oftentimes I'll have a water bottle. Well, guess what? The water bottle, my gym workout bottle, holds a whole lot more. I actually do better when I just have my glass, because that kind of forces me, if you will. That's my alarm when this glass gets empty. Like, you know, I can get up and get whatever it takes, whatever. And I love the idea of the stretches, because just sitting at the desk all day long without the typical, you know, breaks, you really can be doing more harm to yourself than good. And so I like actually building that in. Very good stuff. Very good stuff.
That's great. Great tip. That's
yes,
awesome.
Absolutely. Well, y'all, that is our top 5. Dawn, I know that you are offering something, if so folks can have this handy, if they will sign up, subscribe to your email list. So
Yes.
talk about that real quick before we close.
Yes. If you want this top 5 list, I want to offer that to everyone for free. Thanking you for your support, coming and joining our show today, and your support of Dr. Dawn Shop Talk. So if you will visit our website at drdawnshoptalk.com, I can either send that to you if you subscribe to our email, and we promise not to send you too many emails. But I've also just posted it on our website, so you can actually download it yourself under resources. So you can find it on our website. You can print that off, and you can have all of our top 5 tips and tricks on how to work successfully from home.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, as I mentioned before, next week we're going to dig a little bit deeper into being prepared and specific steps and things that we all can do on Sunday to start off on the right foot, and to even step into these top 5 more effectively and efficiently. So I look forward to sharing that content with you guys. Dawn, thank you again. This is just some fabulous tips for us all working from home, and at the point when we transition back into our offices away from home. Thank you everyone for joining and for following Southern Inspirations and Dr. Dawn Shop Talk. We're so pleased to partner together to bring you relevant educational information for today's world of work, as Dr. Dawn says. Y'all have a great Monday, and we want to hear from you. Let us know. Give us some feedback on my page, on Dr. Dawn's page, about how these tips are working for you as you implement them. So with that, y'all have a fabulous Monday, and we will see you right here at 7 a.m. next week. Thank you.